Buggies! Hello, my diminutive yet heroic friends. Arlo here, and today we're reviewing Bug Fables. This is a game I've had my eye on for years now, and the time has finally come to answer the question: does it scratch a 1,000-year itch, or is its concept paper thin? Paper Mario references. Not sure if that was obvious or not. Anyway, let's find out which! Let's not beat around the bush. Bug Fables is a game created in the style of Paper Mario, and it is not shy about it. And we're not just talking about inspiration here, and we're not just talking about one or two similar elements. It uses the same system of flat, paper-like characters animated in just the same way with other similar visual elements as well. The combat mostly functions the same, with action commands and special moves, and even the exact same leveling system. You explore the overworld in the same way. It's got many of the same mechanics like cooking and badges. Even the sound design takes very heavy inspiration from the first Paper Mario. The devs themselves weren't quite so forward about it when pitching their game, but it's very obvious that this is a group of folks saying, hey, if Nintendo won't make a new Paper Mario game in the style of the first two, we will. And this is a bit of a dangerous gambit. If your game is too similar to a well-established formula, then people will scrutinize it more harshly, and its shortcomings will be all the more obvious. Even series creators and original development teams have been known to bungle the whole spiritual successor thing, sometimes disastrously. So how can this tiny little team of people expect to make a Paper Mario-style game that can even hold a candle to the first two games? Is such a thing even possible? The answer is yes. It's yes. And to get an idea of how enthusiastic that yes is, please imagine me throwing open a window and screaming the word to the whole world. Bug Fables is absolutely the Paper Mario game I've been waiting all these years for, and I could not possibly be happier about it. The game takes place in the land of Bugaria, where a beetle named Kabu, a bee named V, and a moth named Leaf are on a quest to collect mysterious magical artifacts for the Ant Queen. When I first saw early footage of the game, I remember being fairly neutral on the whole bug theme, maybe even bordering on meh. I mean, it was cool that it was going to be like Paper Mario, but bugs? Didn't seem like they would be expressive or interesting enough. Didn't seem like the story could be that good. The visual style didn't quite do it for me at first either. It seemed to be lacking that extra little bit of charm I was looking for. But then I got my hands on it, and throughout the course of the game, the bug theme steadily grew on me, and by the end, I was absolutely in love with the world and its style. The game pulls from a vast number of insect types, with NPCs ranging from cute to cool to interesting to just plain funny. And this isn't just bugs in the grass beating each other up. I won't spoil anything, but this is a legitimate fantasy world with its own lore that opens up the more you play. History and politics and culture, everything needed to make it feel rich and alive. The story is fairly straightforward, but also consistently interesting and surprisingly nuanced in places. This is of course thanks to the game's terrific writing. Here we have a very large cast of supporting and minor characters, all with loads of dialogue. I can easily grow impatient and bored by reading through long conversations between characters I don't care about if the writing isn't spot on. And yet Bug Fables has never inspired me to mash B to skip through dialogue boxes, not even once in all my time with it, which is a feat for such a dialogue-heavy game. Quite the opposite, in fact. I never pass up a chance to talk to an NPC or play out an optional conversation. And you know what? This game probably has significantly more dialogue than Paper Mario. Mario himself wasn't much of a talker, naturally, which forced supporting characters to do the talking for him. But Bug Fables doesn't have that problem. Between its three main characters, I would say that none of them is the main character. They're equally important, and as such, they all have speaking roles. These characters are layered and well-developed, and rarely have I experienced chemistry this good in a game. They all have both similarities and stark differences, which creates these wonderful conversational dynamics and really helps to flesh them out throughout the course of the story. They even have backstories to explore, some of which are surprisingly deep and lead to some poignant moments. I've played many games where the characters get to the end and talk about how much they've grown as people and how close they've become, even when I hadn't observed such a thing myself. Heck, even Paper Mario does this. If I never use a character, how can they say that character has grown or that them and Mario are like best friends for life now? But with Bug Fables, it all happens completely naturally. I met these characters and immediately wondered what their histories and motivations were. I slowly came to understand them better as I uncovered their backstories. I watched them grow and mature. I witnessed the entirety of their relationships, from first meeting to becoming best friends, and all of it felt completely natural. Raw writing talent obviously played the biggest part in all this, but the chemistry between the main characters is also thanks to the simple fact that there are only 3 of them. Yes, picking up new partners was one of my favorite parts of Paper Mario, and throughout Bug Fables, I did dream about the kinds of awesome bugs I wished I could recruit to my party. But the small main cast makes the game feel so much more focused. In terms of writing, sure, but also when it comes to design. As I said, the overworld works as it does in Paper Mario. You use your allies to help you explore and find items and get around. However, it would be inaccurate to say the game only takes inspiration from Paper Mario. There's also a hefty dose of Mario and Luigi here. The 3 characters have multiple abilities which interact with each other in different ways. In order to progress or solve a puzzle, you often have to switch between them frequently and use those abilities in succession. This adds a layer of fun and complexity to the overworld that even Paper Mario didn't have. It allows for trickier and more involved puzzles that are that much more satisfying to solve. And then in battle, my gosh, where do I even begin? In the original Paper Mario, Mario was the main fighter, and his partners could offer their own attacks to supplement. Thousand Year Door gave partners a little bit of HP, making them a little more like Mario himself. But in Bug Fables, all 3 characters are equal fighters who can attack and use special moves and items and the whole shebang. This lends the game even more of a tactical edge over the games that inspired it. Once more, since there are only 3 main characters and you can't swap them out, the devs were able to design every enemy and encounter around them and their unique abilities. Kabu's horn can pierce defense, V's boomerang can bring down flying enemies, Leaf's ice magic can strike enemies hiding underground. Borrowing even more from Mario and Luigi, later in the game you start to acquire team attacks that involve more than one character and require learning and practicing the button prompts. There are also a few new features that increase the tactical potential dramatically. At the start of a turn, you can change around your team's order. You could switch who attacks first in Paper Mario, but Mario would always stay in the front, and with only 2 fighters, it didn't have quite as much of an impact. With 3 fighters, however, this makes a massive difference. Whoever's in front will be hit the most, but they'll also deal extra damage. Then, at any time, a character can use the relay function to give their turn to another character. The downside to this is that each additional attack from one character within a turn will be weaker, which is an extremely fair trade-off. Thousand Year Door felt like the perfect sequel to me because it introduced so many new elements to battle, and these are the kinds of new elements that make Bug Fables feel like a worthy sequel to Thousand Year Door. These tools are incredibly empowering and allow for so much more tactical depth than we ever saw in Paper Mario. You can really take control of some very tricky situations, and when you do, it is so much more rewarding. And speaking of rewarding, you want to know one thing that easily makes Bug Fables, at least from a mechanical standpoint, the best Paper Mario game? It's like a Paper Mario game for grown-ups. Obviously, I'm madly in love with those old games, but they did lack a little in legitimate challenge. You could use the double damage badge or impose leveling limitations on yourself as a sort of hard mode, but that never really felt fun to me, and the games weren't balanced with that kind of stuff in mind. But right out of the gate, Bug Fables demands more from you. Some of these battles are incredibly tricky and absolutely require a solid strategy going in. Even better, playing on the concept of Paper Mario's badge-related self-imposed hard mode, right at the start of the game, Bug Fables gives you a medal that's literally called Hard Mode. It costs nothing to equip and changes the stats of enemies to make them harder. However, it also increases your XP gains, and the guy who gives it to you will reward you with rare medals whenever you beat a boss while wearing it. This allows you to tailor the difficulty to your liking at all times. It gently encourages you to up the difficulty without requiring that you keep it up for the duration of your game. And I must say, some of the bosses in this game are hard, especially with hard mode on, naturally. I mean, we're talking some incredible encounters that require such finely tuned strategy that you feel like a total beast when you finally walk away victorious. In my Breath of the Wild review, I talked about how after years of fun but fairly easy Zelda battles, fighting and beating a genuinely hard monster was a huge thrill. Well, I can say the same thing here. Paper Mario's got some tricky bosses. I remember dying a few times back in the day. but it was nothing like this. Some of these bosses are evil incarnate. Some of them I had to turn off hard mode. I wasn't even coming close to beating them. If you're not looking for a super duper challenge though, with hard mode off, the game provides a very good level of challenge. Not insanely hard, but hard enough to require that you think things through and play well. Even normal battles with regular enemies can wipe you out if you're not careful. No autopilot grinding here. Like I said, the game feels like the same formula, but not executed with kids in mind first and foremost. It asks more of the player and gives them more tools, but all without compromising the formula's inherent pleasant, low-number simplicity. There are other little details that make it feel like a slightly more grown-up experience as well. Now, instead of a block either working or failing, you block more damage depending on how close your timing was. Enemies are a bit harder to predict than in Paper Mario, and you fight each one for less time, making that blocking a bit trickier. Action commands are overall tougher to nail than in Paper Mario, even the ones for basic attacks. These are all subtle differences, nothing to make the game feel oppressively difficult or anything. Just enough to keep you on your toes and make you feel like the formula you love has kind of grown up with you. As I mentioned, equippable badges are very much present in this game. Here they're called medals, but they function identically to their Paper Mario counterparts. You can use your medal points to equip them, and they alter the gameplay in all sorts of wacky ways. There are plenty of badges that have been lifted directly from Paper Mario, but I was thoroughly impressed by all the new ideas the team came up with. You've got the potential for some very weird and interesting builds here, and as always, this system is great because it allows for each player to really customize their team to suit their own preferred playstyle. And of course, medals give you something fun to collect. And on the subject of collecting stuff, by golly have I got news for you. You've got badges, you've got lore books which teach you about Bagaria and its races, you've got crystal berries which are this game's version of star pieces, and best of all, you've got quests to complete. Kabu, V, and Leaf are adventurers, so it's their job to help anyone in need. The game gives you dozens of these quests to complete, some asking for certain items or lost possessions, some leading to surprise fights, some just asking you to talk to someone. Some of these quests lead you down super interesting and unexpected paths. Are some of them basically just fetch questy busy work? Absolutely, but it's a joy to take in every bit of dialogue the game has to offer, and you never know when you'll run into one of those surprises, so I always enjoy doing them. I might be less inclined to do them all under different circumstances, but a very generous shortcut system ensures that it never takes long for you to get where you need to go. In addition to quests, you've got achievements to earn and a recipe book to fill out, as well as a bestiary, and here's something fun. In Paper Mario, you had to use your Goomba partner to tattle on enemies in order to learn about them and see their HP bar. In Bug Fables, any character can spy an enemy, which is incredibly convenient. There's even a different little blurb depending on who did the spying. Furthermore, there's a whole card battling minigame where when you spy an enemy, you get their card, and you've got to build decks using these enemy cards and battle other characters. The minigame is pretty simple and not incredibly well balanced, but I just love it, and it gave me a reason to spy enemies obsessively because you even collect enemies in this game. You even collect the enemies! Between all this, all the battles and the quests and the talking and the exploring and the side stuff like cooking and card battling, you are looking at an incredibly meaty experience. As always, keep in mind that I am a particularly slow and methodical player in most cases, so my playtimes are rather inflated, but Bug Fables took me about 45 hours to beat. You do it a lot quicker than that if you ran right through the story, but even then, the main campaign does not disappoint when it comes to length. And it's definitely one of those games where you keep meaning to get on with the story, but then you find yourself spending hours and hours just doing side stuff. Just one more quest. Ooh, I just need to beat 5 more seedlings for this guy. Wait, have I not done this before? Oh, I need to take this up to the beehive. Oh, but now this other person in the beehive wants me to deliver a letter. Well, while I'm in that town, I might as well get this one item I needed. But if I also swing by this other town, I can combine the ingredients. Is that a lore book behind that bush? I gotta take it back to the library, etc., until it's been dozens of hours and your review is at serious risk of going out past embargo. Bug Fables isn't without its faults, though none of them are enough to dramatically hinder the experience. One issue is that this game contains a lot of platforming despite not being a platformer, and as such, that platforming can be a little awkward. Some of these sequences can be slightly slightly frustrating, though the game is generous enough to respawn you instantly without any hit to your HP, so it's not a huge deal. Using V's boomerang can also be a little awkward and require a good amount of fine-tuning. Fortunately, the D-pad can also be used for movement, which helps you line up perfectly straight shots. Relative enemy difficulty can be a little strange sometimes. Right away, the game gives you a medal that allows you to beat weaker enemies without fighting them, which is another awesome early convenience, especially considering the game's overall higher difficulty versus Paper Mario, where early enemies are a complete joke after a while. As I said, smaller enemies in Bug Fables can still pack a decent punch even later in the game. However, sometimes you'll reach a new area expecting to fight a bunch of new baddies, but they all give you so little XP that they're not worth fighting at all. It's especially weird reaching a new area and the enemies are already defeatable with your Bug Me Not medal. Like you can move through the whole area without having to fight a single guy. But then other areas will have baddies that give you tons of XP. Once more, nothing to ruin the experience by any means, but it's a tiny bit weird. The money system starts out really great. I love a game with money that feels genuinely valuable, and early on, berries are pretty hard to come by considering how much stuff there is to buy. Unfortunately though, the game has a bank with an overly generous interest system, so once you pass a certain point, your money just grows exponentially. Another slight disappointment, though it's possible that the devs wanted money to stop mattering as much in the late game, who knows. I've got other teeny little nitpicks, but honestly, they're not even worth mentioning. I've also got other stuff I could gush about if I wanted to. Oh man, like how whenever you want, you can press minus to have the characters comment on your surroundings, and more often than not, they'll comment on individual NPCs as well. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of unique conversations throughout the game. How cool is that? And there's a boss rush mode, so you can fight any boss any number of times, and even spy them if you missed the chance the first time around. And there are special optional bosses to take on as bounties, and they're extra tough. Ooh, and you know the cooking thing? Well, in this game, there are 3, no, see, I'd go on all day, but I don't need to. None of this review really matters. Because if you're like me, and you're absolutely in love with classic Paper Mario and intensely sad that Nintendo has abandoned it, all I need to say is that Bug Fables is the game you've been waiting for. It's the Paper Mario you remember, but with even more engaging combat and deeper characters, and with its own unique world, so it stands as more than just a simple clone. I've often asked myself, were those old Paper Mario games really that good? Or were they just good for the time and it's nostalgia's fault that I simply refuse to accept the idea of Paper Mario heading in a new direction? Am I clutching onto a formula because it's a great formula, or simply because it's what I experienced first? Well, Bug Fables answers that question. It is a great formula. Even 2 decades later, the formula is still one of my absolute favorites in the entire realm of gamedom. Even when disconnected from the nostalgia and familiarity factor Mario and other Mushroom Kingdom denizens provide, it just makes for a great game. 16 years I've been waiting for this game. It's been one of my absolute favorite gaming experiences in recent memory, and I'm not even gonna do the whole, oh, maybe you'll disagree, maybe you won't like it as much as I did thing. If you love Paper Mario, you will love Bug Fables. Go look at the other reviews. Everyone who loves Paper Mario loves Bug Fables. If Nintendo made a true Paper Mario game exactly like this, I would gladly pay $60 for it, and this is only $25. Go get it. Obviously, I give Bug Fables a 7 out of 7. I didn't make Bug Fables, and I don't have any sort of stake in the game. I'm really just that confident that you will like it. And to show you how serious I am, if you're a huge Paper Mario fan and you buy the game and you don't end up enjoying it, I personally invite you to come to the comments of this video and yell at me. Just really let me have it. And of course, if you've played the game already and you did like it, I would love to hear about that too. Thank you for watching and have a good day, goodbye.